Dolphin kick is fascinating, not just because it's become so important in the sport of swimming, but because of the many subtle nuances that make it work, or not work so well. Using our velocimeter technology, we recently studied some of the fastest dolphin kickers in the world to better understand their strengths, and to see if we could find any weaknesses. The one swimmer we studied in more depth was world-class butterflyer Marcus Schlesinger from Israel.
So Marcus, this is the velocimeter. We need to strap the belt on you, so I'll have you put this on. You're attached to a Kevlar string, which doesn't stretch. So we're measuring your velocity, your acceleration, and your deceleration at every 0.02 seconds in your stroke cycle. And that really tells us all the nuances of what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. Each of these will be different, but we're going to go through a series of about 10 different swims, race speed, okay? All right, Marcus, ready?
With Marcus, we studied 3 different dolphin kick techniques that are being advocated by swimming coaches around the world.
How do you feel about that?
Our goal with Marcus was to test these different approaches to his dolphin technique while kicking at race speed. The first test was done using his normal dolphin kick. In the second test, Marcus was undulating his hips more than he normally would. In the third test, Marcus held his streamlined arms perfectly still above his head.
We'll take the time, we'll edit, we'll analyze it, and we're going to call you later and go over the results, okay? Hey Marcus, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good. How's the weather in Israel these days?
It's pretty windy right now, actually.
You have a good training session over Hanukkah?
Yeah, it's nice.
Good. There's a lot to talk about, and what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and share the screen so you can see my screen here. This was the velocimeter study we did in Coronado. This one is your over-undulation. As you can see, you have 2 primary acceleration points, one here, a big one here, a small one there. And as typical that you do in all of your kicks, you really bend those knees a lot. You actually get to 80 degrees. Regardless of the technique we used, your knee bend is always about the same, which is 80 degrees, which I'm going to point out to you is probably a little bit too much. So now let's look at your normal kick. And I got to tell you, and again, and hundreds of swimmers that I've looked at in dolphin kick, you do something here that is really unique. What I almost never see is such very small change in velocity, which is a good thing. I mean, what you're doing here is you're maintaining your speed really pretty constant through this kicking motion with your normal kick. So in doing so, what we have is we have your best technique, and there's a reason why this is your normal, because you figured this out on your own, that this is not only your fastest, but your most efficient way of kicking.
We then took Marcus' fastest dolphin kick technique and compared it with 3 of the best dolphin kickers in the world.
The next thing I'm going to show you is a comparison with Kelsi Dahlia. And Kelsi is a very fast kicker, one of the fastest in the world. You know Kelsi.
Yeah.
And Luca Spinazolla. Luca is a great backstroker from USC, very fast dolphin kicker. And also Amanda Kendall, who just won the Nationals in Greensboro a month or so ago. And she's also a very fast kicker. So we're going to compare and contrast your technique with theirs. Kelsi actually taught me more about dolphin kick than I'd ever realized. She gets 4 different acceleration points, not 2 like you were getting, but actually 4. Now, it's still reflected in 2 peak velocity curves, one on the down kick, one on the up kick, but she actually gets these 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 different points on each cycle, some more prominently than others. One that happens at the beginning of her down kick right there, a second one here as she's passing through the body vortex, then a third, which is right here, as she initiates the up kick, and a fourth here as she passes through her body vortex on the way up. Now this is where I really want to show this. This is amazing. Kelsi does this incredible flexibility in her ankles, which is really important in the down kick, not in the up kick. Look at the pigeon toeing in as she comes down. It's really remarkable. I mean, that's huge flexibility. See, those feet are really coming together, so they're really turned inward. And that's what enables her to get a lot of acceleration without having to bend those knees. The less flexibility you have in your ankles, the more you have to bend the knees, and that's problematic because that slows you down. Look at how much she turns in. You see, her knees are actually together here. Her ankles are quite a bit apart. That's not something she's thinking about. That just happens from that flexibility that she's developed there. And you can think about pointing them on the way up and on the way down. They should just turn in naturally as you come down. You get some of that, but not enough. That's because you don't have the same flexibility here. Yeah, you're pigeon-toed in, but Kelsi's like almost like at right angles here. Part of that is the ligaments here we need to stretch out. Why does that generate more propulsion? Well, if you can just picture like these bubbles behind you, they're following you. And that body vortex, as these feet pass through the stream, if they're pointing inward, they're traversing the stream at right angles. They're going to get more propulsion that way than if they're pointing straight back. And if you don't believe that, here's what you can do. You can go into your next workout and conscientiously, instead of letting your foot go where it wants to go, keep it pointed straight back and kick as hard as you can. And see how much propulsion you lose when your feet are pointed backward as opposed to right angles. So it's a really important feature, having that flexibility to enable you to get that propulsion on the down kick. It's turning in, but not to the same degree. Now here's what you do on the up kick, which I thought was really cool and different. Okay, now your feet are starting to, get out of the body line. So what do? You drop your knees down. They get outside a little bit. You do lose velocity here, but you have to bend these knees at least to 60 degrees in order to get any kind of propulsion on the down kick. You go further than that. You go to 80, but I've never seen anybody go with that much bend and lose that little velocity. And I think the reason you're doing it is you're dropping these knees down and you're keeping these feet a little outside, but not way outside of your body line. This is Luca. Luca's big, he's strong, he's got tremendous flexibility in his ankles, and yet Luca's biggest mistake occurs on the way up. He bends like you do. He's bending his knees close to 80 to 85 degrees, almost right angles. And you see how high his feet are? They're way outside the threshold here. He's got them way up there. So as a result, his speed is dropping from here way down to here. His peak acceleration, look at that, 15.68 meters per second squared on the way down. He's off the charts down here. But he's also bending a lot to get that. It costs him a lot of energy to get from here up to here and back. Luca would be better off not trying to hit a home run. I call it the 50-yard field goal. He'd be better off bending to 70 degrees or 60. He's got to maybe tighten his kick a little bit and rely on his flexibility, and he'll still get pretty good acceleration, but it won't be quite as high as this, but it's not going to be as low as this. It'll look more like your curve.
While Luca and Marcus are dolphin kicking at exactly the same speed, Marcus' technique is more energy efficient.
And this is Amanda. Amanda Kendall, 5,700 flatter, very fast, good dolphin kicker. And I'm going to show you some really interesting things on Amanda's kick. Now, this was not Amanda's normal kick. The reason I had her do this, I said, Amanda, I want you to really think about your up kick here. Now, I know you normally don't think much about your up kick, but I want you to work the up kick. Notice on the way up, her feet are pointed straight back. That's what I call ballerina plantar flexion. Straight back, like she's standing up on her toes. But she's using the bottoms of her feet to get that acceleration, and she gets a lot on the way up. I want you to look at her velocity curve up at the top. Now she goes down below 1, which is bad, bad, bad. You don't want to be down there. But look where she hits her peak velocity. Normally this happens on the way down, but now she's hitting her peak velocity on the way up, not on the way down. And so she's drawing those feet up with a vengeance. Look at the way she points those toes backward. She doesn't waste any time before she even hits the body vortex. Her feet are pointing and she's pulling them up. And she gets her speed up to 2 meters per second here on the way up, not on the way down. And the reason I bring this attention to athletes is that a lot of coaches think you don't get any propulsion on the way up, that's your recovery kick. It's not. If you work that, you can get propulsion on the way up and you can get propulsion on the way down. See how your feet are hanging too much? If you were coming up with those feet more pointed, you're losing out on a lot of surface area. You actually have more here than here. You want to push up with the bottom soles of your feet through the body vortex. That gives you a lot more power. If those feet were more pointed toward the camera here on the way up, you would get a lot more propulsion without having any more excursion, without bending the knee or the hip anymore. Simply having two things change. One, more plantar flexibility here on the way down, and most of your power occurs right there as you go through that body vortex. And then on the way up, instead of letting those feet hang, point it backwards and pull them up harder. I think it's an interesting contrast in different techniques, all of which, all four of you, very good, but all suffering in one way or another. The net result is you have a pretty good dolphin kick. I think you can take this technique and make it even better.
What we recommended to Marcus was to continue working on his plantar flexibility like Kelsi has developed, to continue working on pointing his feet backwards and pulling hard on the up kick like Amanda does, and to continue developing his overall leg strength like Luca has. With those improvements in his dolphin kick technique, Marcus might reach his goal of finaling in the World Championships and the Olympic Games in the men's 100-meter butterfly.
I think you're going to make it. You're a great athlete, you work hard, and you got a lot of talent. So look forward to seeing how you do.
Thanks a lot.